Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the latest member of the TKO board. How did we get here? We're going to talk about it in just a second, so stay tuned. This is WrstlXtra.
Yo, this is a WrstlXtra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate, always joined by my trios team, the Real House of Black, Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. Yeah, and of course, the omnipresent wise man that is Gerard Bonner. Boys, The Rock is taking over our lives, our TV screens, our cell phone screens, our YouTube screen. The man is absolutely everywhere, and now he's decided to sit at the table, not the head of the table just yet, but at the table of the TKO board. Of course, for those who don't know, who have been living under a rock, I did not mean to make the pun there, but TKO are the company, the parent company of the WWE. Of course, WWE merged with Endeavor to create TKO, with UFC also a part of that group. It was announced earlier today that The Rock is now part of the board for the company. This is crazy. When you actually look at like the news or the ins and outs and all the rest of it, it is wild. It is wild. Gerard, I'm going to go to you. You're the one with all the knowledge of all these things inside and out. Just give us a bit of, some of the information, some of the details regarding The Rock being appointed as part of the TKO board.
Sure. This is a really big deal. And I don't know if people understand how large of a deal this is. First of all, of course, if you look at the board of directors, one of the big pieces of news that came out of the final sale of WWE to Endeavor to form TKO was that Triple H, who was a part of the WWE board, would not be a part of the TKO board. Consider that. On top of that, if you look at the names on this board, none of them sound terribly familiar to the average person, like a Jonathan Kraft, Sonia Medina, Nancy Tellem, Carrie Wheeler. But there is one name that many of you probably do know. That name is Nick Khan, who happens to be the president of WWE. So to add Dwayne Johnson's name to this is really quite significant. And of course, the executive chairman of the board is one Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So this is massive on a lot of fronts. TKO, the parent company for WWE and UFC, which means that The Rock is now part of the board of the two leading combat sports organizations in the world. Couple that with the fact that The Rock, he just bought the XFL about a year or so ago. That has now merged with the USFL to form its own football league, the UFL, the United Football League. That's wild. And as part of this story, The Rock now owns the full trademark for the name The Rock, which had been previously owned by the WWE. Now, again, from a business perspective, you have to understand one of the reasons why when wrestlers come to the WWE or leave the WWE that they aren't able to use the same name is because that IP or that intellectual property is property of the WWE. It is extremely rare that a major name gets to leave with the same name unless it was their given name. Perhaps the most recent example of somebody actually leaving with the same name was Mustafa Ali, one of the very few that actually left. But everybody else who has left the WWE as of late, they all have new monikers. Dolph Ziggler went back to his birth name. Dana Brooke has grabbed a whole new name, right? Top Dollar goes back to his birth name, AJ Francis. We could run down the list of people. So none of them were as big as Dwayne Johnson. None of them brought the kind of merch and the kind of revenue that Dwayne. Think about this. That whole TV show that went for 3 seasons, the Young Rock sitcom that was partnership with NBC, because it was called Young Rock and it talked about The Rock, the WWE's hands were all in it. They were also getting the kickback in terms of money. So what a major power play for Dwayne Johnson to end up on the board of TKO and to get the full rights and ownership of his name back. That's unprecedented, quite honestly. It's unprecedented. And so now, as people are starting to wonder what in the world will happen to WrestleMania 40, man's a part of the board now, guys. He has an extremely vested interest in this sport. You know, think about it. WWE Today was all over ESPN's First Take. You know, interview there. Nick Khan did an interview there. Like, this is the talk. Wrestling is the talk of the sports world right now. And when you have the biggest movie star in the world going back to his roots on the board, yeah.
Just to add a little bit of more context as well in terms of like the details. It's been said that The Rock is set to earn 30 million from TKO. He also earned $491,000 just last year from the WWE, and that's in from sales from all of his stuff and all the rest of it. Expecting to make that and more now, of course, that he owns the rights to his name. So anything that the WWE sells, all that money is
his. And then he can now, you know how people or some of the stars are doing these deals with like Roots of Fight and these other places. He can now take his name and take it wherever he wants to take it at this point. So think about that. $491,000 is a drop in the bucket for The Rock. That's with no new merch made. That's with no new items. Think about the new merch that's going to come if The Rock does another WWE run right now. And think about all the people who will buy that merch. The Rock is about to get paid in ways he's never gotten paid from WWE before. Oh, yeah, and did I mention he's part of the board? So that means he's going to obviously get more money from other things outside of WWE.
Right.
That have nothing to do with acting.
Jeez. Wow.
This is, and I'll just say this one last thing. We're talking about it on this show, not just because he's The Rock, but because he's black. So you're talking about a black wrestler on the board of TKO. A black man who will now sit in a seat of power in the WWE. This is massive. This is really big.
That's interesting. That part right there is very interesting, actually. Mex, I'm going to talk to you. So we've had a number of discussions on this show multiple times over multiple episodes of this show of how important it is for someone to sit at the top. Now, here's the other question that adds on top of this, though. Within the community, I've seen it many times on my own page whenever posting The Rock and blah blah blah. The question is always is, oh, but is he for us? Is he really black? His dad's black, so obviously. But is he really black? Blah blah blah. All the rest of it. Do you think that in any way this is going to have a significant or visible or tangible effect on the way that our stars, black stars, are portrayed, viewed, used, or anything like that?
I wouldn't say so. I would think it would be more of the same. And in recent times, we know things have improved vastly anyway.
For sure.
I think it will be more of a thing of maybe just those that are booking are more cognizant of the fact now there is a black face, a black person, a black man, a very successful black man within this sport and in movies and mainstream media that is basically overseeing a lot of things. So we can't now be foolish in our booking. The rooms for mistakes are no longer there. And they should have never been there anyway. But the room for maybe mistreating black writers and things of that nature shouldn't be there anymore. because now there is someone there for us to kind of stand up and be the vocal point. And it's one of them ones where I don't want a situation to happen where The Rock has to step forward. You know, let's just all behave ourselves and get on with how we should be working. But you would like to think that, yes, if a situation did take place that needed from a racial standpoint, especially, that you've got a voice now that high up that can kind of stand in, whether it's to be a mediator or to be, you know, a voice of reason in that kind of situation. He's there now, sort of thing. And I think as well, it's just good to have someone that's within the sport, was in, you know, a big star from the sport at that level as well.
Right.
He gets it. He was, you know, a key figure in one of the greatest times in the history of the company. So if you want to kind of progress even from just a week-to-week writing standpoint view, I guess this is like literally from the horse's mouth, you know how to do it. You've got that first-hand experience. They're doing a great job as it stands already. So this is just I feel it's a bit of a play by Nick Khan as well. Nick Khan for sure has got his handprints all over this. And you know, we've already seen that they have a relationship. So I think there's a lot at play here. I mean, for us, like we're saying, it's big that we've got that kind of representation in the boardroom at that level. It's crazy. But if there was anyone to do it, I'm sure everyone would have put their money. It would have always been someone like The Rock. If not The Rock, maybe a Cena, but it would have definitely been The Rock, especially where, you know, and so much things with, you know, you talk about his merch, movies, this, that, and the other, mainstream appeal, the talk that we hear that, you know, he wants to run for office one day and all of that kind of stuff. Like, I just think like these are these just things he's putting on his resume before he eventually makes that move into office. But yeah, I'm happy for him. I'm very happy for him, and I just want to see, you know, how this product gets better as a result of it.
You mentioned Nick Khan and the relationship that him and The Rock have. For some people who don't necessarily realize, The Rock is no stranger to most of these people who are actually on the board at TKO. The Rock and Nick Khan have known each other since they were kids. I'm not sure exactly how, but they have. Nick Khan's sister was one of the co-producers of Young Rock as well. Here's the other thing to remember as well. Like, The Rock, on paper, The Rock actually sits on the board as a representative of Endeavor and not WWE. That's very interesting because, like, I've looked at the board and all the rest of it, and there are two groups that each person represents, either WWE or Endeavor. The Rock is on the Endeavor. The other thing to also note is that The Rock has been a client of the Endeavor-owned WME talent agency for 13 years.
Right. So
Ari Emanuel's been a part of this man's life for 13 years minimum, probably even longer than that, and we just don't know. But The Rock, this is not like out of nowhere. This isn't just the last couple of years. This isn't because he broke social media records in October when he made a return. All this kind of stuff. This isn't, you know, simply because he's trying to get his foot in the door so he faces Roman Reigns and beats him at WrestleMania 40 or whatever it is. It's not one of those things. Like, this has been probably in the works for a very long time. But of course, as well, in the press release from TKO, they were very much, celebratory of The Rock's achievements with all his movie stuff and definitely his businesses. Terramana Tequila, Zoa Energy Drinks. What's the other one? The Rock's is gymwear, Rockwear. And then, of course, as Gerard mentioned, the merging of the two minor football leagues that happened on the 31st of December, I think it was, literally like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that this man still has time to even go on social media, let alone half the things that he is now involved in and is a part of. Of course, we mentioned You know, his movie stuff as well. He owns 7 Bucks Productions. I believe they just put out, The Rock posted some music video from someone. They had something to do with that. Like this, and still has time to go and meet a bunch of kids for Make-A-Wish at Universal Studios and sit down and talk to them and know them. I saw this video. He had a paper with every single person's face, their little profile, what they do. Sat down and spoke to them about everything that they. This man, I don't know where he's come from, what he's made of, but I just want just a little bit of it, like just an ounce of it, and I'll be happy. It's crazy. Speaking of the connection with WWE, and of course, as I've said, you know, this whole thing with Roman Reigns, we are still up in arms and not really knowing exactly what's happening, how it's happening, and where it's happening. But we have found out, I believe it was last week, that there is talk that Roman Reigns isn't actually advertised for Elimination Chamber. So, do we think that this match is still happening at Elimination Chamber, or in some strange way, is it actually going to happen at WrestleMania? I know what Gerard thinks. I'm not going to ask you. It's quite obvious. Mex, has your thoughts changed at all as to how this thing is going to happen?
I mean, well, yeah, it looks like it's probably more so WrestleMania now than Elimination Chamber. The stuff with Roman Reigns like pretty much confirms that, you know, he ain't gonna be there. So if The Rock goes to Australia, who's he wrestling?
Right.
So yeah, it looks like it's destined for WrestleMania. Like I say, it that was always the grounds of where this should take place. Like even now, if people want to say, you know, they'll push it down the line to SummerSlam, I'm not trying to hear that. I actually think that might be worse than Elimination Chamber in a way. So yeah, if it's gonna happen at Mania, let's make it happen. If it was him, with maybe that was a red herring for what has just happened in terms of him joining the board. You know, I want to sit at the head of the table. Because in a way, this is, like you referred to, the table is the head of the table ultimately. And if you guys remember, following that appearance on Raw, I think it might have been a tweet. I don't think it was on Instagram. I think it was a tweet. He rattled off a few things like, oh, yeah, this is going to be... It was like a really kind of motivational, Rock-esque kind of tweet. This is going to be a great year, you know, changing the game and this, that, and the other. And now with this news today, it's like, right, is that what he was talking about? You know, joining the board of TKO. And I guess maybe this is a bit pessimistic of me, but maybe as well, I'm thinking my seat at the head of the table. Yeah, everyone's going to think I'm talking about Roman, but maybe this is what I'm talking about. Like I'm getting back involved. But at this level, you know, I might be wrong. He may still be talking about Roman. It might still be on the cards. And now more than ever, because he has a vested interest, you know, he might be wanting to get this match done on his CV. It's his final match. It gives Roman that you know, kind of anointing of he's had his match with The Rock. And then we can all move on from here. Hopefully that's the case. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if it was all just a big red herring for this announcement.
Not a bad take at all. But if we are going to get The Rock and Roman at WrestleMania 40, how does it happen? We saw a very good promo between Cody Rhodes and CM Punk yesterday on Raw. Of course, you know, they seem to be the two favorites to win the Royal Rumble. Both. Yeah. Well, Cody Rhodes has definitely set his sights on Roman Reigns if he's winning the Rumble. CM Punk, it could be anyone, you know, either Roman or Seth Rollins. But how do we get to, or how do we solve the problem of who actually faces Roman Reigns at the Rumble, Gerard?
How do you solve the problem? You know, this legitimately seems more complicated than this time last year when we were trying to figure out was it gonna be Sammy? Was it gonna be Cody? Like, how are we gonna solve that issue? I'll say this. I want to harken back to something that The Rock actually told us when he did that interview several months ago with Pat McAfee. And that's when we all found out, oh, snap, Rock versus Roman was supposed to happen in LA.
Mhm.
And he said the only way he was going to do it is if they could do something that was unprecedented. If they could do something that made history, something that's never been done before. Then we started getting all these tea leaves to, could we end up getting Rock Roman at WrestleMania 40? The idea that he came back at the top of the year, did that whole deal on Raw, mentioned the head of the table, which is where we first heard in WWE land, oh, snap, this could happen. Now his full investment in all things WWE by being a part of this, to me, this is all part of that. This is all part of the unprecedented thing that could bring The Rock out of wherever he was into the middle of the WWE world. Now, so to me, how it happens is almost irrelevant, right? Like this isn't The Rock having to enter into the Royal Rumble to get a match against Roman. This could happen where, picture it, this Saturday, the match that closes the show isn't either of the Rumbles, but like last year, it's the Universal title match. And it looks like Roman could win this whole thing, and then The Rock's music breaks, distracts Roman loses the title. The Rock costs Roman the championship.
To who? What?
To who? Pick somebody, because whoever it is doesn't have to be champion long. It could be Randy Orton. I don't think it would be LA Knight, though that would be this wild moment, you know. Who's the third man in there? AJ Styles? No. So it'd have to be Randy. It'd have to be Orton, right? Orton gets a chance to go back into what could be his final WrestleMania as a world champion, defending against whoever. Here's the thing. Rock and Roman does not need the championship for us to pay attention to it. If Roman is now having to fight The Rock because Rock, you cost me history, you cost me the championship, you cost me having Hogan's record.
Even I'll be upset at The Rock if that happens.
Well, here's the thing. Now it won't just be Roman versus The Rock. It's Roman versus the board of directors. It's Roman versus all things WWE. This is mine. We got a whole nother story happening here. I think this is a great problem to have because we know somehow CM Punk has to end up in a main event. Somehow Cody has to end up in a main event. Somehow Roman's got to be in a main event. Somehow Rock, there's no way Rock could do that tease on January 1st, then turn around 3 weeks later and be on the board of directors and not end up at WrestleMania. We don't forget that kind of stuff. That was too big of a moment. It made records. It was too big. So something's got to give. And seeing that there's not going to be any Rock or Roman at Elimination Chamber, I don't think we leave Tropicana Field this Saturday night without an appearance from The Rock. Somehow, whether it is The Rock costing Roman the championship or The Rock staking his claim to the championship, The Rock shows up in some way and has an epic interaction with Roman Reigns Saturday night.
Yeah, that's what I've always thought was going to happen. Like, I always bookmark this event. That if they put it in the main event, like you say, I think Roman just flat out retains, and then, you know, maybe he celebrated and Rock's music hits, or maybe he does his, he takes to the mic shtick and does his "there's nobody left" stuff, and then the Rock's music hits. One or the other. We are seeing The Rock on Saturday, and I feel that's even more cemented because of this news now, that we see him. So yeah,
I mean, now that he's part of the board of TKO, it might actually be, you know, compulsory that he has to be at WWE PLEs.
Right.
I mean, it's a possibility.
It's his. He's on the board.
Exactly. I strongly believe in some way, shape, or form, you're definitely seeing The Rock on Saturday. It would be crazy for them to, as you said, Gerard, he does the promo that he did a few weeks back. They've announced this whole thing with TKO literally days before the Rumble. There is, I would be flabbergasted and think it would be an absolute major missed opportunity if we don't see The Rock in some way, shape, or form on Saturday. However they do it, I don't. As you said, Gerard, I think it's irrelevant. It doesn't really matter how we get to The Rock versus Roman. But I guess when I asked the question, it was more so to do with everyone else and how we get the whole Cody thing and the CM Punk thing and the whoever, and Damien still has to cash in and blah, blah, all of that kind of stuff. We've got Seth with this injury thing now, and can he even get to Mania and all this kind of stuff. And as you said, all of these things are actually very good problems. It's now being very intrigued to see how they solve them. What storylines they hit us with, what twists and turns, what surprises, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be very, very interesting. For me, this may just be the most interesting Royal Rumble in a hell of a number of years. Last year was interesting. It gave us all these little things, as you said, the whole Sammy, Cody, whoever, blah, blah, blah. But that was solved quite easily. Give Sammy the early championship opportunity. He loses, boom, Cody comes in, does his thing. But this one has got so many different ways it can go, and it makes it very, very, very interesting. Keeping our attentions with the Rumble itself, or with the event itself. It's in a couple of days, as we've said. There's so many different things, so many different ways it can go. With the matches themselves, obviously the Royal Rumble is very much known for a few twists and turns, a few surprise entrants, and all the rest of it. Are we seeing any surprises when it comes to entrances in either the women's or the men's Rumble? Does The Rock turn up in the Rumble?
No way, not a chance.
Okay, that's all right. I'm thinking the same thing. I just want to ask the question.
I think for the men's, if we're looking at the men's field of play, the surprise that I've got bookmarked in regards to our stars is definitely Big E.
Yes.
This New Day versus Imperium thing, I'm convinced is by design at this point.
Mate.
And it's very good TV. Like I don't mean to sound ignorant when I say this, but I find it hard to be what's the word, invested in the New Day in 2024, just because I just feel they're still great. It's just I've seen it all, sort of thing. Like, what else are you gonna do now to make me still invested? Exactly. And the whole vicious element that Xavier Woods showed last week, I think it was, against Kaiser, and obviously the pair of them showed against Imperium this week. It's something new. It's something new, being pushed to their limit, sort of thing. And Imperium have a third man in Gunther. I'm expecting New Day's third man in Big E to return. Maybe we get him, Imperium running roughshod on these guys in the Rumble, and then Big E makes his grand return, which will blow the roof off the place. We get a stare off between Big E and Gunther, and I slightly think as well, depending on what they can do or what they have plans for, that could be the WrestleMania match as well for the Intercontinental title.
That would be phenomenal.
If Big E comes back. Obviously, Big E left, he was WWE champion, and I think after that title run, he won the IC belt again. I think he did.
He won
the IC belt first.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he was WWE champion.
Yeah.
But when he dropped that title, was he not a champion again before he got injured?
No, because he lost the title top of January, and then a couple of months later got injured.
Okay, cool. So I think that could be a strong way to reintroduce him anyway if he won the IC title, and it's someone credible for Gunther to lose to.
Very much.
So in terms of men, that's probably what I'm thinking, and women, I think it's Trinity. It's just kind of almost nailed on that she might be there. Obviously there is a 1% that Sasha Banks could be there because she hasn't turned up anywhere else, but it is pretty much a 1%. Yeah, I think the women's one's probably a bit more open in terms of who we see, and they seem to be always needing the female stars. They often draw on having quite a lot of NXT stars in there as well. I guess the other one person is Jade Cargill, if we see her or not. At this point, I don't think we do.
Really?
But I really don't. I thought this was going to be the place. I remember we all said it. If it wasn't the NXT at the time, Becky was champion, it was going to be Rumble. Even now, I'm thinking, boy, like, someone said to me today, in our Discord chat, someone said, if she's not going to win it, then you don't debut her in it, which I don't necessarily believe. I think you can still have a good showing, but at the same time, I do kind of subscribe to that at the same time. If you're gonna put her in it after all the noise you made about her, then yeah, she should definitely be considered as one of the potential winners. But yeah, at this point, I don't see her being in it at all. So
okay, let me because you're both agreeing on this, and I really don't get it. So explain to me why not?
Well,
why not what?
Why not? Why you're not expecting Jade to be there?
Okay, go on.
Well, I think one of the reasons why she doesn't show, because at first I was on the train, Jade shows up. But I think what we've been seeing in these last few weeks, Jade has been so far in the background. Every now and again, we see a Jade training video just randomly pop up where she's training with, in Florida with TJ and Natty. And it feels like they're getting Jade ready for a massive presentation. And when I say massive, it's much different than the Jade that was the TBS champion. So I don't think that Jade is going to end up just coming out as the power girl. She's going to come out with a different array of moves, a different move set. She's still going to be, you can't change her physique. So she's going to look powerful. She's going to look stunning, but she's going to do more than a typical mesomorph does. So it's not just going to be her throwing people. It's going to be her doing more than you expect. So the question is, will the Rumble give her the opportunity to do that? Now, I still maintain that if she's in the Rumble, which I don't think she needs to be, if she's in there, she ends up final 4, final 6. The problem we have right now is the star power that's in the Rumble right now could overshadow her significantly. Meaning, you've got Bianca, you've got Becky, you've got Bailey, you've got Nia, you've got Asuka, there's another name that I'm missing of significance, and it'll come to me.
You said Becky. Bailey? He's Bailey.
Yeah, Becky. I said Becky, Bailey, Nia, Bianca. There are about 5 or 6 very significant names that are in there that could all be deemed favorites right now.
Liv Morgan.
Yeah, Liv Morgan probably will return. I don't know if Raquel will be ready because she's still sick. Now, again, also where you place her is important. The thing is, I think Jade needs to be put in a place where she gets to shine, where she's not overshadowed. And the question is, should Jade Cargill's WWE debut be in the same space where we go, but we're expecting this one, that one, and the other one to win, and she doesn't get to shine like she needs to? So my question now is it better for a Jade debut to happen in one of 3 places: Royal Rumble, Stand and Deliver, or the Raw after Mania? And to me, either of the latter 2 would be better. Because here's the thing. Here's why I say it'd be better.
You still think they're going to send her to NXT?
Never.
They could.
They could. It's not impossible.
They could. It's
not impossible.
Here's the thing, because Jade got signed. And I say this carefully. Jade got signed because of her star power. Because if she was signed on wrestling ability alone, we would have seen her in the ring already.
Yep. Facts.
So
definitely.
they have the star. They're now matching the wrestling ability to the star power so that she can be that one. So it stands to make sense that she then get the opportunity to have reps in NXT. Because think about it. She didn't get a wide variety of opponents in AEW because they didn't get her to fight the whole women's division. She only fought that TBS division. So, you know, probably the most experienced person she fought was Athena. That was once. Ruby Soho was once, you know, but she didn't get the more experienced people. In NXT alone, the people who have reps there, the people who are working there, I mean, between Lyra and Roxanne and, you know, a lot of the other names that are there, Blair Davenport, Gigi Dolan, like there's enough women there that could test her in diverse ways where she doesn't have to have the longest run in NXT, but get your feet wet there because by the time you hit up Raw or SmackDown, oh, you're gonna be swimming with the sharks, and they want to be able to prove that she can. So I don't know now where Royal Rumble could work is if there's this feeling that we don't have enough women on our current roster to do it. Now I think they've got a deep roster on Raw and SmackDown, and they're gonna pull from NXT. I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah.
Will she be one of the ones? That'll be the question. I don't know. But it was a bigger possibility for me when she first signed than it is now.
I completely disagree with the fact
that's okay.
that I know. With the fact that the Rumble wouldn't be a good place for her to debut. She doesn't have to win if she comes in. I can't think of many people who have debuted at the Rumble and have gone on to win. AJ Styles being one of them. The first one that comes into my head. There's been a few others who've all made big returns. Go on.
I'll say the but AJ Styles and anyone else that you've said, did they have the presentation Jade had beforehand? AJ Styles turned up in WWE at the Rumble.
Oh no, you're right.
Right.
So I do think, like I said, I'm not 100% that she has to be in the Rumble and win it if she's going to be in it. But I definitely do subscribe that because of how they basically showed her to us already, like Gerard said, the Royal Rumble isn't really the best place for her to get her full entrance and all of that kind of stuff to really get the fans on board with what they're doing. So the way you would kind of make up for that is making her win the Rumble.
Right.
Like that's the best way. So yeah, I'm like 90%. If she's in it, she probably does have to win it.
I still feel as though that's asking too much. So as much as she had the presentation. When's the last time you've seen anything or heard anything about Jade Cargill and WWE? Whether it be TV, whether it be social media, blah blah blah. That died down.
It's been intentional.
It's been intentional, and that's and that was a while ago. So for me, and with the Rumble as well, you could kind of almost have, and this is just one scenario. There's so many different ways. One scenario. Remember when Brock Lesnar was getting rid of everybody, and then Keith Lee came out? Like that's a possibility. You could have like a Nia Jax, for example, getting rid of everybody, blah blah blah, and then Jade comes out and actually gives her a bit of a run. Then she's in the match for a while. A few more ladies come in. Jade's then eliminated by someone significant. So maybe it be a Becky Lynch or a Bayley or someone. At least then there's a feud for her to go into when it comes back to regular TV, the weekly shows as well. There's still a way for us to see Jade and people think, wow, and are invested. It's not impossible. I don't think it's impossible. So I'm still hoping that Jade Cargill turns up and it's in a way where it still can be done to where they're like, this is what the fuss was about. But at the same time, you don't want to put her in a position where, because even with like Raw after Mania, for example, does Jade Cargill come out and challenge whoever the champion is at the time? You know what I mean?
I don't think she needs to at Raw after Mania.
And this is why I'm saying the Rumble thing can still work because it doesn't have to be the highest profile opponent or the highest profile position on the card or whatever else. It's still doable.
Yeah, I think what makes all of this challenging is had they signed her quietly and she was showing up as a surprise, all of those things could work. She could come in because there's no expectation for her. They literally put this woman on ESPN. They put this woman on TMZ. They had this woman doing all sorts of interviews. They've talked about her on Raw. They gave her red carpet treatment. We have not. They didn't do that for Cody. They haven't done that for anybody in the modern era, a brand new signing. So it has to be, it cannot be followed by her showing up at number 15 and getting eliminated by number 20. Like, we're going to all go, what was that for? Because here's the other thing you got to think of. The other thing you have to think of is, how do you follow that big of a presentation?
Right.
It has to be followed with something that goes, oh yeah, this TKO era is a serious thing. Because to the point that I know we've made on here before, there are others to follow, right? So if a Ricky Starks is to follow, he's going to look at that and go, oh, yeah, I want to do that. Or, oh, nah, maybe nah. You know what I mean? So I think it's bigger than just the Rumble. It is about being able to create this template. Now that we know a number of people from AEW, for instance, their contracts are coming up. They're interested in making the jump. They now know, on top of all the other things that they know, that The Rock is on the board. Like, there's all of these things that are going on. So how do you make the impression that says, hey, when you come sign here, here's a trajectory for you. Here's a template for you. So that's why I think there's so much time being taken with Jade, her presentation, and where people just have to prepare themselves that she might not show up at the Rumble because there's a bigger play at work.
That's another great reason, because we're in the midst of a bidding war, like in terms of tit for tat, or going to this company, going to that company. We can't afford to drop any of our special gems that we've now acquired too early. Like, if you mess this up on day one, like Royal Rumble, man, it's not going to look great. It's like you've put her away in the lab for so long just to bring her out to do that. Like, people are waiting for WWE to fail. More, smaller than that. People are waiting for Jade to fail. Smaller than that. She's a black woman that they're paying a lot of money. The world is waiting for her to fail.
Right.
Like, they're waiting to tweet out that, oh, look, yeah, she was all smoke and mirrors, and if Tony Khan booked her better than this, and they're waiting. The tweets are probably drafted.
Right. You're probably right. You are right. You are right.
Like, so WWE know, like, we can't give them an inch in terms of Jade's booking, for sure. Like, you don't want to give them an inch. And even with Cody Rhodes, Cody is a different case, because obviously he was in WWE before, knows a bit of how they move, despite obviously things have changed with new ownership and that. So we can't. We still want to bring in more guys from over there, as mentioned. So yeah, everything needs to be perfect with Jade. There is actually no point in rushing it. We're not starving. We don't need Jade to come here. We've got loads of talent. So we want to see her. Don't get me wrong, but we're not starving. Like, we're well fed right now.
Because what'll happen if it doesn't happen right. We'll be on this very show.
Yeah,
and it will be. You already know. So
remember that time? Was it about 4 years ago now? I think, when Big E was eliminated after like 20 seconds or something like that. That was we went.
Listen, if something like that happened, I wouldn't even show up for the show. When I sit down with you guys, I feel like I'm sitting down with my elders, my big brothers. Like, I can't. I don't talk the way I talk when I'm angry, when I'm with you guys, because I'm showing respect. So if they came and brought Jade and messed it up, I would go on a live stream, and I would the vulgarities that would come out of my mouth, I would lose it.
Wow.
So that's another warning for WWE. Don't do it if it's not going to be perfect.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
We're keeping the conversation with our Black Queens, because there's another one that we need to celebrate right now. Yesterday, WWE and 2K Games, should I say, TK. Wow.
You thinking
Whoa.
TKO? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
TK Games
TK Games.
released both the trailer and the covers of the new WWE 2K24 game. We were very surprised and excited to see Bianca Belair gracing the cover with Rhea Ripley, the cover of the deluxe edition.
Yes.
Of the game. I don't know the ins and outs of the game and what's going on and what the new features are and all the rest of it. That part went past me. But I know full well that this is the first time two women and women only have been on a dedicated cover of the game, as well as, of course, Bianca Belair being the first black female to appear on any WWE video game. Also, at the same time, on the same day, Bianca decided to grab 2 wins for herself. And the trailer for her upcoming reality show with her husband and WWE wrestler Montez Ford also came out yesterday. Love and WWE. The first episode, I believe, streams on Hulu on February the 2nd.
Yes.
Gerard, how put your head in Bianca Belair's for now, and how would you feel yesterday seeing both those two things just come out and literally kind of just take the wrestling world kind of by storm, and you're in the middle of it?
Yeah, if I'm Bianca Belair, I am overjoyed. I am absolutely overjoyed. It's so interesting. There's a part of me that wonders if Bianca Belair, who did not grow up in the world of pro wrestling, if she fully understands the gravity of what she has been able to accomplish. I mean, you're talking about, those of us who have been lifelong fans, we remember when we wouldn't see a black woman on our television in pro wrestling. If we did, she was rare and she was outside of the ring in a managerial capacity, but she was like, a Sapphire or something like that. You'd see a Miss Jacqueline, who was Miss Texas at the time, who'd get in the ring, but that was not on a national level. That would be in like Memphis or in World Class or something like that. It took a long time before we got to see a black woman in a national promotion be prominently featured. Jacqueline got that opportunity during the Attitude Era, but she was literally one of one. And then, Jazz came in, and Jazz had a decent run. I don't think she got the credit she deserved for what she accomplished. But then, after Jazz and after Jacqueline, it went silent for a long time. I mean, there was the young lady Shaniqua, who was from Tough Enough. And then you get into the Alicia Foxes of the world. But it was always literally one person. It was one person. And that person was never the face of the company. Never. They might have held a title, but it was brief. And then we got the Funkadactyls for a bit, and it was, and again, everybody kind of played a role. We never got to see strong, confident face of the company, the one that women and children loved, the men loved, everybody loved. Then here comes Bianca Belair, who worked hard and who did it, and now is going into places that nobody's been before. I mean, here she is undefeated at WrestleMania, the longest women's title reign in WWE in the modern era for WWE. You're talking about longer than Charlotte, longer than the 4 horsewomen, longer than all of the chosen ones, right? It's her. She's been the #1 wrestler on PWI's 150 or 250 now, she's done all of these incredible things. And now she gets to be on the cover of a prominent video game for WWE, a huge franchise, and release a reality series whose trailer doesn't look like Love and Hip Hop, right? It doesn't look like any of those kinds of trailers and reality shows that have made people frown on what our community brings to the table. This looks like love. This looks like a couple supporting each other. This looks like her you can see, we thought it, but to see Montez struggle with who he is while his wife is very clear with who she is and how she handles that. That's not easy at all. I mean, it's one thing as the man to support your woman. It's another thing when she's a bigger star than you. You know, like, how do you deal with that? And to get to see them handle that, and to see, at least from the trailer, she's not, you know, well, you could just do this. I'm this. Like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So it's a win for Bianca. It's a win for WWE. It's a win for Black women. It's a win for Black love. Like, this is a massive win. So I hope that she is able to take all of that in and recognize that she and they represent that, from her being on the covers to this. And again, this landing on Hulu, prominent streaming place. Lots of people are going to, you know, if it does anything like what Total Divas did, it's going to open up, you know, a new audience for Bianca and for Montez and for WWE. This is phenomenal, and it makes me so happy that these are the images. This is the stuff we fought for. This is the stuff we always wanted. These are the images we want portrayed in entertainment and in sports, and now we get it. I hope we go and support it and stream it like crazy and buy the video games and all the things to show them, yeah, we follow and support what we said we wanted.
Max, I pose a very interesting question to yourself. With Bianca being on the front cover, this you know, reality show coming out as well, Montez, of course, being involved, does this type of you know, all these eyes on them and all the rest of it, should this also then translate in the ring in terms of what they're currently doing? Because at the moment, yes, Bianca's still kind of up there, but she's not where she was, say, this time last year or for most of last year. Montez Ford is kind of, you know, in a bit of a twilight zone right now with the group with Lashley and Dawkins. Should this translate better in the ring, or is it enough to kind of get people still wanting to see both of them on a weekly basis on WWE TV?
Well, I can say after the news of her coming out as the cover star and the trailer coming out, I threw down my phone. I was like, "Oh, she's never gonna turn heel now."
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's never gonna happen. Never.
I thought, yeah, it's gone. It's gone. I can see why. Well, I can see why. She's lovable. Like, she's loved. She's a great role model. And you know, like Gerard said, all the stuff around just real issues around actual love and, you know, a healthy relationship, as opposed to what these other series with a similar name are like. Should this translate better in ring? I think we need to remember, well, we are smart wrestling fans watching it, right? At the time they probably filmed this, I'm sure Bianca Belair was probably champion.
Yeah. She's it was that.
She's walking around with the title, and people that are just gonna catch the fact of, oh, he's loving WWE, like, they're gonna see her as the Black Ladies champion. If they investigate further and go and watch the weekly product, then they'll see she's not champion. It's one of those things where if the show is doing well, that could determine their booking going forward.
Very true.
I think it may be a happy coincidence now that, you know, the Pride have some type of direction on TV, at least of a name. They still haven't referred to themselves as that, but
do they?
You know, I would say at least they're in a program. They're in a program with a group that came after them that has direction. So at least there's that, right? At least there's that, and that's gonna put Montez on TV to kind of showcase himself in a good light. With Bianca, it's a difficult one because going into Mania, you're still a bit unsure. I think we probably all thought her and Charlotte could be a nice piece for WrestleMania. Right now, I don't know. I don't want her to be inserted into anywhere she shouldn't be, like a women's world title picture.
Right.
I don't think that's on the wall right now. you can maybe, do a little swapsy and get Nia Jax over to SmackDown and have her, and just a one-off match. But she has to have a match at this point because of who she is, sort of thing. Just find a nice organic way to do it. So I think the show might determine more so of if the booking for both of them will improve on TV, and how well the show is doing, and if people are kind of clamoring for them more than expected. But right now, I think around this time of year as well, just a lot of things are kind of penciled in already. We just need to get through a Royal Rumble, get through an Elimination Chamber, and then we know, right, this is what's happening. So I don't know if too much will change between now and I don't even know how many episodes is in the series. So it might be like, I don't know, 8 weeks of television or so. Yeah. So, by the time February starts, 8 weeks will take us right up till WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, probably it's not going to change anything. But post-Mania, when the series is done and they maybe evaluate the series and people really want to see more of them, that could be something they consider. Yeah.
Interesting. Let's turn our attentions away from WWE. We've not got much time left, so let's throw ourselves over to AEW very quickly. The biggest bit of news that we've seen this week from AEW is that my favorite thing, the AEW rankings are returning. Gerard, how do you feel when you heard that news? It kind of just came out of nowhere in the middle of a random match. Tony Schiavone was like, oh, I've heard some news. Oh, the rankings are coming back.
Tony Schiavone.
When you heard that, how did you feel, and how do you feel about the rankings just in general?
Here's what's interesting. When they were gone, I almost forgot about them. Like, I think part of what had happened is AEW, they were telling stories or they were making decisions that never included the rankings.
Yeah.
At least for this last year, such that we forgot about that. As a matter of fact, I remembered as I was watching a couple of episodes earlier, in the last couple of weeks, I thought to myself, anybody remember when they said that wins mattered and that at the top of the year, everybody started with a new record? So it was so wild to me to see at the top of the year, they'd put someone's entire AEW record up. And I was like, wait, what about for 2023? Or what about for 2022? It's interesting because one of the skewed points you could argue about the ranking system was that they always counted the matches that happened on Dark. And you could easily have, 30 matches on Dark against somebody who does not really equate to who you would have battled on Rampage or Dynamite or this new Collision era.
Not even, and so now AEW.
Right. And so now all of a sudden you end up in a title match. And it's like, wait, so it does cause me to ask, if you're bringing the rankings back, then what were you using to merit a title shot when the rankings were gone? And are you saying that whatever system that is no longer working such that you need to bring the rankings back? Now, without there being a Dark, do we have a way as fans to be able to go, okay, oh, yeah, they've won the last 20 matches. Can we go trace those matches somewhere? Or we're just going off of what you've told us. It's been 20 matches. Okay, cool. I don't know. They're going to have to do something to make these rankings really mean something. And now that we're not dealing with Dark, maybe it will make sense to us because it will mean we've seen them win their last 5 matches, unless they're counting what they've done in, say, Ring of Honor, and they should not, that shouldn't cross, right? Like Ring of Honor stuff should stay in Ring of Honor. AEW stuff should stay in AEW. So it'll be interesting. It just was kind of like, oh, okay.
So see, all of this now leads me to the question of, you mentioned it as well already, with Ring of Honor, for example. One of the things that we want to talk about today was, Shane Taylor, Brian Keith, Queen Aminata. We've seen them on both AEW and Ring of Honor in the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
On Ring of Honor, they're winning matches. On AEW, they're not winning anything at all. So, for example, Queen Aminata, I believe she's had 5 matches, 2 wins on Ring of Honor, 3 losses on AEW. If she continues to win on Ring of Honor, does she then get a TBS title shot on AEW? Or does
No,
she face,
sir.
or does she face the Ring of Honor Women's Champion or the soon-to-become new Ring of Honor Women's Television Champion? Like, and here's my issue. Like, the rankings thing can work. It can work. But then with this issue of people going in between Ring of Honor and ROH as well, I'm not sure how it's going to work and what it means. They need to hurry up and have the distinction between wrestlers on Ring of Honor and wrestlers on AEW. Then do the rankings and maybe they start fixing their problems. It's encouraging to see that they're bringing the rankings because they feel as though something's missing or something's wrong. They're trying to fix something great, perfect, because the last year or so of AEW has just felt very much WWE sports entertainment, which it was never supposed to be. And that's why I bring it up, because it was never supposed to be that. Not because it's a bad thing, but because it was never supposed to be that. Right. So, yeah, for me, the rankings, okay, cool. We're bringing it back, blah, blah, blah. Middle of January or towards the end of January, when the rankings were supposed to kind of start over at the start of the year, not quite sure. But is it now even more important for this distinction between AEW and Ring of Honor to actually happen, or is there a possibility of the lines being blurred and all the rest of it? Mix, what are you thinking about the rankings in general?
I was quite happy when they announced, when Tony Schiavone said they're bringing it back, because I had a lot to say about the rankings at the time, but it's because of literally the points we've touched on. Things like mixing, people are getting wins on Dark and Dark Elevation and then walking out with championship opportunities. Like, are we crazy or what? How does this make sense? They're beating people that aren't signed to the company. They're beating people with a year's experience in the business. And we are weighing that the same as a win on a Dynamite main event. Doesn't make sense. Me and you talked about many times, like, this is quite simple. If you want to include Dark and Dark Elevation or now Ring of Honor, if it's AEW, if it's Dynamite, Collision, maybe even Rampage, and they win, count that as 2 points.
Right.
If they win on Ring of Honor or Dark or whatever it was back then, give them 1 point. That's the way to differentiate it, at least. So people can't just go and run up wins against nobodies respectfully and then come and get title shots. And I'm just eagerly anticipating now that they figured that out. If they're bringing it back, it means they've figured out some way to better present this as rankings and make the rankings work. Maybe motivation to bring it back. Obviously, Tony Khan had his bit to say around Jinder Mahal getting a title shot out of nowhere and this, that, and the other. And I think when many people looked at it and saw, I think at the time it was Daniel Garcia. If you remember, towards the back end of last year, he had a title shot against MJF. Before, in terms of singles wins in the entire year, he had three singles wins. He had some tag team wins, and he had a lot more singles wins in Ring of Honor and then other indies and stuff like that. But in terms of AEW TV, he had 3 singles wins all year. And you're saying, you're here talking about Jinder, who, okay, fair enough, he had none. But is Daniel Garcia 3 singles wins really any better to get a title shot?
And he's a former champion as well.
Well, there's that exactly. So it's one of them ones where, right, the pot's calling the kettle black here. And maybe they are trying to, let's rectify that situation. They seem to be moving back to their more traditional way of programming TV, sports-based programming. So I'm for it as long as you have ironed out a real good way to work on it. I'll prefer if you just don't mix Ring of Honor in this. But if you do, then there has to be some superior point system for wins on Dynamite, Collision, and maybe even Rampage over Ring of Honor.
But then, sorry, Joe. But then, what happens if you're saying they don't mix Ring of Honor, and whatever happens on Ring of Honor happens on Ring of Honor? But what if a Shane Taylor comes onto AEW and gets beaten by John Moxley like he was the other day? Is that a win for John Moxley? But Shane Taylor's on Ring of Honor. Like,
there's that as well. There is that to kind of figure out as well. I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, just don't mix the records. Maybe Ring of Honor should have their own record as well. Who knows?
Gerard, what was you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say the only time blurred lines works is with Robin Thicke. And even then, that didn't work because he got his pantsuit off, okay? The problem for me here is AEW is supposed to be AEW, okay? To me, I look at it like this. Raw and SmackDown don't blur the lines with NXT. They're very clear. NXT is NXT. If you go to NXT, you're a Raw or SmackDown superstar, okay? If you bring an NXT title to Raw or SmackDown, it's still an NXT title. Part of the problem that we have right now with these ranking systems is, okay, you were mentioning Daniel Garcia with 3 wins. Do wins automatically qualify you for any title? Like, aren't there championship divisions? So here in AEW, you've got the International Championship, the TNT title. Now you got the Continental Crown, and then you have the World title. So if I have 10 wins, does that mean I just get to pick the title I fight for? Which title does that put me in contention for? I think all of those things have to be ironed out because let's just face it. Here it is, Hook, who was 29-1, who has the FTW title, a title that's not recognized by AEW, who's never had a title shot at any other title, automatically jumps to the world title picture and gets the first title shot against Samoa Joe.
Can I just add in there quickly? They were very smart with that because even that 29-1 isn't over 1 calendar year. That is over his entire 4-5 year career in AEW. Correct. They cheated.
So it's like we have to, there needs to be some, because again, the idea is making this believable. So at least maybe even take the PWI route where they list their rankings and their rankings are by brand or by, so you can look at it and you go, that makes sense that they're number 1. That makes sense that they're number 2. And then if you're looking at the world title, you know how at one point in WWE, if you were the Intercontinental Champion, you were kind of already inherently deemed number 1 contender, even though you didn't get a shot. It was just a recognition of that. So like, does your International Champion fall in that place of they be automatic number 1 contender? Or does your TNT champ fall in there? Or does your Continental, like, those things have to be clearly defined if you're going to make it an athletic kind of thing that has those kinds of rankings, you know, because you're dealing specifically in the States with other sports whose rankings are very clear. You know, we're going through our football championships to lead to the Super Bowl. And it was very clear, okay, this is how so-and-so made it to the playoffs because we could look at their record. And you could, I mean, it wasn't like, okay, this team got 3 wins over an 18-win season, to the playoffs they go. No, you know what I mean? So if you're going to have it like that, then it has to make sense so that the fans can trace it. And that's what I'm hoping AEW can figure out.
So all in all, for this to work out properly and work out and make sense, we're basically going to have a Continental Classic all year round.
Well, somebody's got to manage the numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with that said, and it kind of quickly brings me on to our final point as well. With that said, that means Swerve's winning this whole thing and he's going to become champion very soon.
Mark my words. Swerve at Revolution is your new world champion.
I guess that's the last thing I would say. Now that they've said this ranking stuff, as in like right now, they've just said it in the middle of the month. We're going to see a lot of Swerve just beating everybody or anyone, Hangman beating anyone to just boost numbers, basically. And although obviously we're at a point now where we believe Swerve and Hangman can do that, beat anybody, it's a bit disingenuous to get us to there. You're now having to use it to justify it. Whether like if you started it at the beginning of the year, like we're bringing the rankings back, cool. Then we have 3 months to build to the pay-per-view where you know Swerve can get his wins, Hagen can get his wins organically, more of a sense. Now it's gonna be like kind of obvious, but here we are.
And now as Gerard said, with so many championships, that's even more blurred lines, like which championship is more important than the other. And it's obvious the world is at the top, but international, continental, TNT, which one's more important than the other, like actually more important, not to which one we feel has been showcased the best or who's had the best run as whatever champion, but which one actually, what's the hierarchy when it comes to these championships. But
and also, do we force people into it? There's people like Danielson that he's been getting wins on AEW TV, but he's now entering a program for the Continental Crown, but like surely he has enough wins to go for the world title. Is there going to be something like, no, you need to go for that belt because your wins, you know, determine that's where you should be in terms of a division? It's a lot to work out. Well,
so many questions to be answered, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll get those answers. But for now, guys, this has been our time. You've been watching WrstlXtra on the WrestleManiac UK YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see when this guy Mex puts out all his reactions on AEW, WWE, and everything else in between. You can find Mex on socials, on WrestleManiac UK on Twitter or X. Sorry, Elon. Or WrestleManiac.uk on Instagram. You can also find Mex on the Wrestling's YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe and see when the Mandem put out all their weekly shows as well. You can find this guy, the omnipresent Gerard Bonner, on all things Bonafide. You can find him on WWT Live. You can find him Southern Honor Wrestling, his own show, The Faction Show, IWE, Shay, and everything else I've missed out. You can find me, A Dazzle, on Instagram, on Black Wrestling Alliance, and BWA Dazzle on X. Guys, it's been our time. We hope you enjoyed our Royal Rumble. We'll be talking about it a lot come next week, I am sure. Until then, see you next week.